Hi. Happy Sunday. Hope you had a great weekend. It was gorgeous. Hope you got out and did some cool things. Missed you guys. Haven't seen you for a while. I've been kind of busy. A lot of things going on. But since the NHL is starting back up, I thought it was appropriate to pull out the Drivel I wrote last year right after the Blues had won the Stanley Cup. Almost to the day I wrote this. And thought I'd bring it out and freshen it up and kind of get us all ready for their defense of the Stanley Cup, huh? What do you think? Here you go. Hello, my friends. By the way, when I wrote this the first time, hopefully most of you knew that was how Noel Picard used to start all the radio telecasts. Some of you did know that, and now some of you know it that did know that. It's been a month now since our St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup. And John Hamm was right at the time. He said, "It sounds so good. I never get tired of hearing it." I've been collecting my thoughts and feelings, trying to find the right words to use in describing this incredible story that we all had front row seat for. But the fact is, our boys have written the story for me and all of us, and they continue to add chapters to it on a daily basis. Boy, did they ever. A story so incredible that if written for a movie, Hollywood would never go for it. Too unbelievable, hokey, too far-fetched. Nobody would buy into that. Hell, for most of us who watched and lived through every single moment of this, we still found it hard to believe. I talk with people, or back then, and even still now, I talk with people on a daily basis about the Blues. They and we are still giddy about it. I was even at an establishment the night before I wrote this, and they were replaying Game 7 of the final. And everybody there was watching intently right along with me, oohing and ahhing with every rush up the ice, every hit, every shot, every save. And yes, cheering the goals like it was happening live. We throw the term around making memories, creating memories. We throw it around like a frisbee. But my God, how about the memories that were created by the Blues from January to June of 2019? It stirred the memories I had as a kid, seeing the very first game of the Blues played at the arena. It was a 2-2 tie against the Minnesota North Stars. It was being played in the same arena when Ron Schock scored an overtime breakaway goal as he flipped the puck over the sprawling Cesar Maniago to propel the Blues into their very first Stanley Cup final in 1968. I was 8 years old, and I remember looking up the rafters at the clock through the hanging fog comprised of cigarette smoke, St. Louis summer heat, sweat, and surely some tears. The hands were at 10 and 12, and I still remember how very cool it was that I was there with my dad to witness this at almost midnight. The kids at school will never believe this. It's not an over-exaggeration when I say that I've probably seen over 1,000 Blues home games. My dad had season tickets for the first 12 or so years, and then I had them as an adult for about 30 plus years. Yes, I use the word adult very loosely, especially in conjunction with being at a Blues game. I grew up attending games in the arena of the old barn, and memories of the "Let's Go Blues" chant, Norm Kramer and Ernie Hayes at the organ piping out when the Blues go marching in, as the sold-out crowds of anywhere from 15,000 to 18,000 people would sing right along. I got to see the Stanley Cup skate around the rink twice by the Montreal Canadiens. I remember the smoke and the sticky floors, the smell of stale beer, wading through the water in the bathroom floor to try to find a place to go. The way the building shook and rattled as the Blues rolled, and yes, sadly, the demolition of the building. I do still have my 2 actual season seats and 2 more parquet seats in my basement. We were allowed to come in get them before they busted up the joint. And thanks to Paul Farrar, because I was incapacitated, I guess. I couldn't go, so Paul Farrar went and got them for me. Memories of the reluctant move to the new state-of-the-art building, the house that Brett built. I was afraid to spill a drop, use the urinals, or even gulp, yell, or scream. And worse yet, where would we all meet between periods? Problem solved. I found a pencil and drew a dot on the wall, equidistant between the doors of the men's restroom underneath our seats. It was forever said, "Meet us at the dot." There was a side note. I no longer have my tickets, but my daughter went to a game that year, and she said, "Dad, they all still meet at the dot." I may leave out some of your faves, And I may even miss some of you as I try to recreate these memories, so feel free to chime in and add any of your own here. I cut my teeth on the Plager brothers, Noel Picard, Red Berenson, Jimmy Roberts, Al Arbor, Glenn Hall, Jacques Plant. I suffered through years of Jerry Ordrowski, Neil Komodowski, Brian Lavender, Gilles Murat, Gordy Roberts, the wrong Lemieux, the failed Russian experiment, the revolving coaching door, court decisions, no draft, etc., etc., etc. And maybe the worst of all, the Checkerdome. Born again with Liut, Federico, Sutter, Mullen, and Babbage. Hullenote, Stevens, Shanahan, McInnes, Pronger, Backus, Oshie. And now the Stanley Cup team, with the only captain ever to raise the cup, Alex Pietrangelo, Tarasenko, O'Reilly, Schwartz, Bennington, Steen, and their cast of characters. I've encountered so many friends, the Finers, the Foxes, the Bergmeyers, Duvals, Johnsons, to name a few. Went to so many games with my dad, my mom, my brother. Took my kids to the games. We sat there year after dejected year and watched the final game of the season of the playoffs. We would watch and applaud our boys as they skated off into another summer without winning that prized final game. Sometimes stunned, sometimes angry, but most of the time sad, but always looking forward to next year. Well, my friends, this year, or last year, was finally the next year we've all been waiting for. And although I was not in attendance for the playoff run, aside from the opening Dallas game, thanks Bob, I watched every minute of every game, some with Aaron, most of them with TNT, many of them with my dad. My dad, the recurring theme of some of my greatest childhood memories, and many of my greatest adult memories. And there we were, 3 generations of Blues fans, Teagues, Trev, D Squared, junior and senior, watching in amazement as the Blues held a 2-0 lead into the third period of Game 7 of the freaking Stanley Cup Final. Then it was incredibly 3-0. It was trying to creep into my brain that this might really be happening. Trevor was beyond excited. Teagues was giddy. But oh no, wait just a minute. My experiential background with this franchise would just not allow myself to give in to what others thought was a certainty. Then came a Boston goal, and with it that sick feeling that the parade might be in jeopardy. But goal 4 came and gave me the reassurance that not even the curse of Keenan, no court ruling, no meat on the burner, no red striped uniform, no hand pass, could now stop this from happening. The Blues were going to win the freaking Stanley Cup. I still can't believe it now. The countdown began 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Yelling, screaming, joy, hugs all around. 5, 4, 3, 2, freaking 1. Delirium in our house. I could almost hear Dan Kelly roar. The arena in St. Louis is in a bedlam. I put my face in my hands and sobbed. Oh yes, real tears. None of that man mist, the crap we talk about. The real mother freaking tears. TNT were running around crazy, and there was my 78-year-old dad sitting stunned on the couch. He simply said, "I was afraid I'd never live long enough to see this." Well, Dad, you did. And you got to see it with your grandkids and your son, the one you saw the very first game with. And I got to see it with my kids and my dad, the one that took me to my first Blues game 52 years ago. Thanks so much. Erin, my oldest daughter, is now thinking about getting season tickets. Of all my kids, she's probably able to go to the most games as she grew up. And as we talked about the process of buying them, her last thought to me was, Dad, are we going to go get section 314, row E, seats 1 and 2? Those are our seats, and they belong to our family. And I'll just leave it there. As always, hey, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for stopping by. It's Dad's birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday, Pops. And once again, thanks for another great memory that shows up in the blog. Cheers. Hey, let's go Blues.